Hello everybody, John here with Shooting Tips and Tricks, and today I'm going to be showing you how to mount a scope to your rifle. Now for this one I'm going to be using a one-piece quick detach mount, which is made by American Defense. And I've never used these before, but it is an American-made product, so we probably run a higher chance of it being a quality product. I haven't looked at any reviews or anything like that on them, but it seems to be pretty well made. And I chose a quick detach model because I'm going to be using this as my shop scope for switching from one rifle to another for accuracy testing. Now for the scope, we have a Vortec Viper. And it's a pretty decent scope. It's not a real high dollar one. And it has a 30mm tube. It's a 4:16 power and the side focus parallax. So the first part of this one is we're going to be pulling the screws out of the mount here, and this is the side mounting style. As you can see, the screws are going from the side rather than the top like a lot of others. Now when I always undo these, I always make a point to whichever hole the screw came out of is the one that it's going to go back into. Now the reason for that is these threads are not made perfect. I don't care how good the machining is, they're never perfect. So when you run the screw into the hole, the threads will actually match itself to the threads in that hole. And it's a slight shift in the metal, but it's enough to matter. And the thing is if you run the screw in there, once you tighten it down, then it matches even more. It's not so much when it's loose. But basically, if you run it in there, match it to the threads in that hole, then take it out and put it into a different hole, once you tighten it down, it has to match itself to that hole. So, doing that a couple of times, you run the chance of the metal on the threads actually cracking, because they are rather thin, and as anyone that's messed with metal before knows, it's easy to bend, but once you try to straighten it back out, that's when you run the chance of it just breaking. Now, we'll just set this guy right in place here. And we'll run these guys right up snug. I'm setting it up off of the gun so we ain't messing around with the gun while we're fiddling with all this, because we can always snap it on afterwards. Now on this one, these are rather snug threads too, even though they're only about halfway in. Alright, now that we got that set up pretty basic, we can put it onto the gun and continue tightening it down and then straightening it. Alright, here we have our rifle set up and we're ready to put the scope on it. Now, none of these come adjusted with the quick detach. You always have to tune them yourself, and it's relatively easy. All you have to do is move it to the relaxed position, push it in, and then you can adjust the screw on the opposite side. And this one I already adjusted, so it'll be ready to go. Now I'm going to be using this leveling system for straightening the scope so it's nice and exact, and that involves the barrel mounted level up in front here and this little one that sits on the back here. And the way these work is the front one you screw to the barrel and tighten it down, and then you have this one sitting on the flat part of the receiver, and you match this one to the one on the barrel, or vice versa. You're matching the one on the barrel to this one, because this one is going to be the top of the receiver is going to be the most parallel to the bore. So after you've done that, then you can take this guy off, and you're going to be using the one on the barrel as your reference. And then after that, you can set your mount on. Tighten these down. Now for the tension on these guys, you want to make it just about as tight as possible where you can still take and undo them by hand. You don't want them so tight that you need to pry on them to get them loose, but you don't want it so loose that you can just flip them easily, because they're not going to be really secure then. So now that we have this set up, we'll get this guy centered up somewhat. And then you undo the cap on top here. Because the adjustment knob on the scope is going to be the flattest area that's parallel with the crosshairs inside the scope. So then you're going to take this guy and set him up here. And then all you have to do is adjust them back and forth until this guy matches the one on the barrel. Now, whenever you're tightening these down, you want to pay attention to the gap between the two halves of the rings. On this one it's top and bottom, but the same principles apply for the ones where the two halves are top and bottom rather than side to side. And you want to match the gap up here to the gap on the bottom. You want them both to be the same. That way when you tighten it, the ring is pushing straight against the scope, because if you have a little more of a gap on the top than the bottom or side to side, then it's actually going to twist your scope to the side a little bit when you tighten it. And whenever I always tighten it, I always start on one corner, and then I go to the opposite corner, then up to here, and then opposite corner. And I maintain that whole pattern. That way it sucks that ring straight against the other half. So we're going to pull this guy up a little bit snug here, and we get ready to tighten it down the rest of the way we want it, so you can just move it a little bit. Because that way if it's too loose, then it's flopping around while you're trying to get this straight, and then you go to tighten it and it might wiggle around some. Alright, it's just about enough to where you can still wiggle it, but it's good and tight. Now I'll set up this guy. We'll tilt him over. I'll check it with the other one. Get her gun a little bit more level here. A little bit more. Alright, and that's about right. Now we can finish up tightening these down. Alright, that's pretty snug there. Now if you don't have one of these leveling systems, another way that works good to get it pretty close but not exact is basically you look through the scope at the end here and you pull your head away so that you can still just see the center of the crosshairs, but you can also see around it, mainly the bottom of the receiver here, or the flat of the receiver. And what you want to do is match the crosshairs with the flat on the mount here. So basically you'll have a flat bottom and your crosshair will sit like that when you're looking at it. So if it ain't straight, it'll be counted like that or like that. So you want to straighten it up so it makes a perfect 90 degree with the top of the receiver. And then if you're just using it for hunting, that's perfectly fine, but if you're going to be shooting longer distance where you're dialing for drop, then you're going to have to adjust for windage as well, because when you dial the vertical, it's moving it at an angle rather than straight in line with the bore. Alright, and that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.